Hello, 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 and welcome or welcome back. I'm Shakia, and in this episode, we're gonna talk about Sister Wives Season 17, Part 2 from the One on One Tell All. It was okay. I did have a revelation though regarding Janelle, which I'll talk about a little later. But aside from that, I don't know. I think I might be over it. I'm ready to see what these next chapters look like for a lot of them. But all right, let's jump into it. So, part two, it begins where part one left off. They continue to talk about this reconciliation between Cody and Mary that never happened. Cody and Robin, they continue to say that Christine called it off, that Christine had a blow up regarding the possibility of Cody reconciling with Mary. Mary is like, this is all news to me. I haven't heard Christine mention it. Cody hasn't mentioned it. And Suki asked her, well, what do you think that Christine had this blow up or had this reaction? And Mary said, I think it's interesting that she says she doesn't remember. Um, and Suki says, well, Robin remembers. And Mary says, well, that's interesting. So Suki continues to probe. She's asking her, what do you think about this? What do you feel? She says, it's heartbreaking. This was the episode where honestly I had some empathy for Mary. Now, I still didn't like how she reacted throughout the season toward Christine. I don't like it. And yet, I do have empathy for her. And I think she's hurt. Now, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, but I still don't understand why she is open to reconciling with Cody at this point. But maybe that's changed. Maybe that viewpoint has changed. And I hope so. So, listen to what Mary said.
I think it was a moment that he wanted to.
It's a little heartbreaking to me.
Mary said the fact that he could have given us a chance, and now 2 years later, he's like, absolutely not. I spent a lot of years full of hope, really looking inward and figuring myself out and becoming a better person, and just hoping that that was good enough, but it's not. Like he actually said those words to me, that that's not good enough. It's hurtful, but it also is what it is. So Mary said she started to look inward. She started to do work. She wanted to become a better person. And Cody said, but that's not enough. He still does not love her the way that she would have wanted him to love her. And that's messed up. But it also brings me to a point that we've talked about before, that it seems when Cody continues to talk about loyalty, accountability, that it means they must do and behave in a way that he deems to be okay. And if you don't, then he's done with you. So it feels like the wives have to continue to change who they are. They have to do the work. They have to change who they are. And then they're just hoping that Cody will like this part, accept this. And in the case of Mary, according to her, well, we know this. He said this. But in the case of Mary, she said she's done some work. She looked inward and still that wasn't enough. He told her that wasn't enough. That is so messed up. I felt so bad for her. Like I really did, because she has been with this man for 30 something years. But check this. Check this. When Cody was talking about their relationships from the beginning, so at some point Suki, the host, the interviewer, she has them watch and react to clips from previous seasons when things were happier, she said, when there were happier times. And Cody says that he and Mary had trouble from the start. Now, I know that they've talked a little bit about this before, but the way Cody put it, it was like from jump, this marriage was doomed. He said after the honeymoon stage, it was a storm. So you've been in this storm with this woman for 30 something years. Why not leave this storm? And it's interesting because when Mary talks about it, she talks about, some of the struggles, but she speaks about Cody with so much love, with so much love and affection. And when he talks about Mary, it is very matter of fact. So, yeah, watching part two, I definitely had more empathy for Mary. She also said, we have a lot of history regarding her and Cody. We have a lot of history, and I love him. And he has chosen not to love me and not to want a relationship with me. And so far to consider himself not to be married to me. Whew, I love him. And he has chosen not to love me. Oh my heavens. Because I would imagine coming from Mary, it definitely looks like he made the choice not to love her, especially if she's saying, look, I did the work. I've made some changes. I'm open to reconciling. I know where I messed up. In my book, that's taking accountability. But it seems in Cody's book, she still isn't taking accountability. Cody says nobody takes accountability. Cody is like, nobody is accountable. Nobody is accountable. And I'm sitting over here saying, Cody, neither are you. Neither are you, beloved. You're not accountable. I definitely had a lot of empathy for Mary during this episode because that has to hurt to know that your husband of 30, I think 32 years made a choice to not love you anymore. I had so much empathy for her. And Mary brought this up after Suki asked her, well, where do you and Cody stand? Are you divorced? Remember, they also talked about this during part one. And so they brought it up again during part two. And Mary said, well, you've heard him. We are divorced. He made that decision. Something else. If you watched, did you notice that when Cody was talking about this blow up that Christine had, I think at Robin's house, when he brought up the idea of reconciling with Mary, apparently that was also the same time he brought up living in the one house. Now, if you remember, Christine did not want to live in the one house. She has said this over and over again. I want my own space. I want my own space. I don't want to do that. So I imagine hearing about the reconciliation and this one house idea, Christine probably was in her feelings and had a reaction, but I don't think it was solely about Cody wanting to reconcile with Mary. And during the tell all, she's like, why would I stop that? Why would I stop that?
That's really absolutely frustrating and offensive right now. There's no way I would not support him and Mary having a great relationship if that's what they both wanted. That's absolutely ridiculous.
So Christine denies interfering or saying no, she didn't want Cody to reconcile with Mary. Also, Christina said, as I said before, that she didn't want to live in the one house. And when we heard more about when the three wives first started living together, what was going on, I understand why she wouldn't want to live with them. She said it was very difficult. She and Mary had a lot of conflict with one another. She didn't know, which version of Mary she would get, or if she did something wrong, and then there would be conflict, and she was very uncomfortable. And Janelle spoke a little bit about this as well. What I didn't know is that when Janelle married Cody, they were all living in Mary's home. I didn't know that. And so Cody is like, this is her domain, and I'm bringing somebody else into her home, what's already established as her home. And so there definitely was a lot of conflict early on. Now, Cody also says, well, he just continues to talk about the conflict and the way he phrases the way Cody tells it, it was really Christine and Mary at some point having a lot of conflict, amongst one another. And Janelle wanted to remove herself. Janelle said, it's interesting how he remembers things. He remembers things in a way where it's favorable for him. She's like, because I don't quite remember it that way. But of course, if he remembers it that way, then he can continue to blame people for how everything unfolded, which that's what he's been doing, which is why I'm like, sir, you want everybody else to take accountability. Where is your accountability, Cody? Huh, beloved? Where's your accountability? So the revelation I said I had at the start of this video was regarding Janelle and Cody. I think Cody did love Janelle when when they first married. Now, where they stand now, I think in his own way, he still has a lot of love for her, which is one of the reasons why he was so hurt that she sided with Christine. Even though I don't think it was necessarily her siding with Christine, I think she was seeing how things were playing out and she didn't agree with it. But, and I know it's odd because if somebody gets married, you would assume in this day and age, you would assume that they love each other. That's the hope, right? At least for me, that would be the hope. But we know that Sir Cody, he said respect matters more. And we're going to see that in part 3, apparently. But we saw the teaser for that. He said respect matters more. And he's always talking about respect and loyalty and accountability. But anyway, when he was talking about getting married to Janelle, it's almost as if, dare I say, his face lit up a little bit. Like, I think he genuinely liked and loved Janelle in a way that he did not, in a way that was different from his marriage to Christine and Mary. According to Cody, he said, I married Mary. And he talked about all of the obligations. Again, it didn't really seem like love. It didn't feel like love. But I think for Mary, it was love based off of, the things that they've said during their confessionals and just the scenes we've watched. I really feel like it was love. I think the women genuinely loved this man. And I think he married most of them because he felt like he was obligated to marry them in order to be part of this polygamous lifestyle. So, anyway, according to Cody, he said, I married Mary, and that was a hard relationship from the very beginning. And that's the thing. I feel like when he talks about Mary, it's not very loving. It's not affectionate. He said it was a hard relationship from the beginning. He said Janelle was a blessing of dilution. It diluted this relationship I had with Mary. But then he acknowledges that bringing in other people to a relationship, to a situation that's already fractured, is difficult. Duh, Cody. So it adds on to the difficulty, it adds on to the conflict, the additional marriages he now has, right? He says, when Janelle and I got married, I thought, wow, this is something special. I never heard him say that about Christine nor Mary. Never. But when he said this, it almost seemed genuine. What do you think? When he said this, it almost seemed genuine. When he said, when Janelle and I got married, I thought, wow, this is something special. He said Christine came in and it seemed to calm things down. Calm things down when it came to Janelle and Mary and some of the conflict. But that didn't last forever because then he talks about more conflict that they have. And eventually, Janelle moved out. She moved in with her parents. He said he wanted to move to Utah. They were living in Wyoming. Janelle was like, I felt settled there. I didn't want to leave. But then he got a house. So it wouldn't be Mary's house anymore. So he got a house and then Janelle said, okay, let's go for it. But what I do think is interesting, because again, I don't think Cody genuinely, and this is really messed up to say, I'm not saying this because I want to be mean spirited. Like, I really don't. I just think Cody from the beginning never really loved Mary. And he says that after the honeymoon period between he and Mary, that they were in a storm. He's like, and we've been in a storm ever since. Sir, for 32 years, you've been with this woman and you've been in a storm. Let her go. Why didn't you end this marriage to her a long time ago if you feel like it's been a storm? But that's also something to say, like, after the honeymoon period, it was a storm. He's like, right away. And listen, every marriage has conflict and there are difficult points throughout the relationship. So we try to work on it, right? We try and manage the conflict. We try and maintain this love and affection and respect we have for our partner. But if it's no longer working, then we let the partner go. In this case, it's like, Cody, why didn't you let this wife go? Why didn't you let your wife go? And I wonder, how transparent were you being with Mary? I wonder how transparent, because I wonder if he was being transparent, would she have made the choice to stay? And so, yeah, that's one of the questions that came up in my mind. Now, Suki asked Janelle about Cody's blow up, right? When he had that big old scene, the knife and the kidneys, right? Remember that scene? Suki asked Janelle about it, and Janelle says, if you have to sacrifice to love somebody, that's not healthy. Yeah, it's not healthy, Janelle. Thank you, Janelle, for being here. And I've said this before in other videos. I so appreciate Janelle, especially this season. I appreciate her because Janelle just has so much sense. She's so logical. Like, I appreciate her so much. And and I agree with that. If you have to sacrifice this much to love somebody, that's not healthy. Why are you with this person? Because it also sounded like he didn't really want to marry Christine either. He continues to say Christine wanted to join the family, and apparently because of his ego, because she was high ranking. She came from a family that was high ranking within their church at the time. And so Suki is like, was it ego? And he was like, I'm a polygamist, honey. It's always about ego. Okay. At any point did you love Christine? I used to watching older seasons, I thought he did love Christine. There were moments where they just were so cute together. So to hear him talk about the relationship this way, almost as if he never really loved her, I'm like, wow, I wonder if that's true, or if you're still speaking from a place of hurt and embarrassment because your ego is fractured because she left you. But he's like, Christine wanted to be in the family, and so essentially that was that. She moved in and she became the third wife. I wonder though if he ever genuinely loved her and wanted to be with her, because we've heard him say that he wasn't attracted to her, that he had to force himself to what did he say? Force himself to be a husband to her, something like that. He said in an earlier episode of season 17 or a previous season, I believe. Something to that effect. Back to Janelle. Janelle says, again, I'll repeat this. If you have to sacrifice to love somebody, that's not healthy. And this whole frame it around, you were a bad sister wife, according to what perspective, she asked. According to what perspective? According to whose perspective? Are you really my husband too if you only see that Christine, was a bad sister wife to one person, aka Robin? Because remember, when he put on that performance, he was talking about Robin. He didn't like the way that Christine interacted with Robin. He didn't like that Christine, according to him, was rejecting Robin. So then, because of that, he puts on this whole performance talking about the sacrifices he had to make in order to love her. Whew. Mm, 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 mm. And so I love those questions that Christine posed, right? Like, according to whose perspective? Are you really my husband too if you only see that she was a bad sister wife to one person? Because Janelle is like, this is feeling a little skewed. Like, it's feeling a little skewed, and we're framing it this way to make somebody else look like the terrible person. So you don't care what the relationships were like between Christine and the other women, but when it came to Robin, you just couldn't take it. So Suki kind of asked Cody this. And Cody said, well, I was talking about Robin in that moment because Robin brought it up, but really it was about all of the wives. No, it wasn't. It didn't seem that way, Cody, because you had Robin's back, okay? Talking about it was about all of them. No, and he says, over the years, Christine just would talk about the other women to me. Christine would talk about the other women to me so much, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't stand it, but she just never liked them.
Christine talked Janelle and Mary for 2 years to me. This is why I was getting frustrated. It's like, you keep telling me I'm sleeping with the enemy.
Christine said, he talked about them to me too. And she was like, we complained about them together. And she's like, I thought that was normal. I thought it was okay. I thought it was okay. If something happened, if I didn't like something, I would tell him about it. She's like, but to me, it wasn't a big deal. But apparently to Cody, it was a huge turnoff. So then say that to her. We have this thing called communication, Cody. So it's like, well, did you again, I wonder if he was transparent. I wonder how transparent he was about his feelings regarding Christine complaining about the other wives. How transparent were you about your feelings to Christine? Did you tell her this? Just like I wonder how transparent he was to Mary. Did you tell Mary how you felt about this whole situation, about y'all's relationship? You can't expect them to be a mind reader, Cody. And Janelle, again, she said, if you're really married to both women, you're going to see both sides. And then fast forward in the conversation between her and Suki, Janelle says talking about Cody, he's a little bit myopic when it comes to Robin and her hurts and her perspective and her experience and this versus everybody else's. So he can understand Robin's perspective. He's invested in her feelings and what's going on with her and her hurt and her all that stuff. He's invested in this person, but when it comes to other people, I'm like, where is the grace? Where's the grace, sir? Where is it? Do you care? Obviously, it doesn't seem like he cares or cared. And so Suki asked Janelle, well, has he ever asked you what your experiences are? Janelle says, no. No, we've never really had that conversation. And this is not to put one wife against the other, it's to look at how these relationships are different. We have to also look at the common denominator, which is Cody, how these relationships are different, and what needs are not being met versus what needs are for each relationship. And it seems that because he has such a different relationship with Robin, perhaps Robin's needs are getting met and Cody's needs are getting met in that dynamic. But the other wives, it's like, hey, I'm here. Hello, husband, see me, love me, hold me, hug me, be affectionate, like me. Whew, I don't know how they did it for so long. I really don't, because if this is Cody, how did they stay with this man for so long? And Mary, there's a clip and Mary says, this is not the man that I've married. And I'm like, Mary, this man don't even like you. He said from jump, he wasn't even with it. He got married out of obligation. I just think it's so messed up. So I do think for me, the revelation, well, aside from learning that they all lived in Mary's house when they first got together, aside from learning that, for me, I think a revelation was that Cody actually liked and dare I say loved Janelle in his own way. In Cody's own way, his version of love. But I do think he loved Janelle. And I think he loved her and liked her for a long time. But I think they lived these independent lives for so long that he became frustrated with that. And I don't know if he's had a healthy conversation with her about it prior to this separation. But I do, from the way it seemed, and even watching the season, I had that thought as well. Like, wow, I really do think he cared for Janelle in his own way. I do think he cared for Janelle. Um, Not necessarily this season, excuse me, but in past seasons. But I do think he was extremely hurt because, in his view, Janelle aligned herself with his enemy, Christine. Because I think that's how he has to frame it in his mind to make it okay, to make his behavior toward these women okay. Toward the end of the episode, Suki asked Cody to describe his relationship with Robin. Tell me about your relationship with Robin. And he's looking around, he looks down at his watch, and Suki's like, oh, do we need time? Well, we have time. And he goes, I'm not going to answer that. And she's like, hmm. Now, if I were doing the interview, I would ask, well, why are you not going to answer this? What would it mean for you to answer this question, right? Like, I want to know more detail. And, I know this was brought up regarding part 1, and the same thing remains for part 2. I was really hoping that Suki could dig a little deeper when asking questions to Cody and to all of the wives, but asking more follow-up questions and just having everybody dig a little deeper. I think it would have made for interesting TV. I think it would have gave more insight to viewers, and I think it could have maybe even helped the cast find closure with these situations or come to some sort of new understanding. So I was hoping for more in-depth questions, but we didn't really get that. So he did not answer Suki. He didn't respond to what Suki asked him to tell her about his relationship with Robin. Describe that relationship. He did not respond. We do see a clip for part 3. And she says, well, if I play a clip, will you watch and react to it? And he says, well, maybe. No, sir. You came to this tell all. We're going to get to the bottom of some things. Let's really dive in. And I feel like there's a way to do that and to be respectful while doing it and to still get some answers. And I think that's the frustration with this tell all parts 1 and 2 is we're not getting any answers. Like they're not going deeper. Let's go beyond the surface. Also, did you notice a lot of times when Cody is talking about situations, he doesn't actually talk about his feelings. He just talks about like the other wives, their reactions or his reaction to them, but not necessarily the feeling part. And I'm like, that's interesting. Do you know how you felt? Can you tap into that a little bit? Do you care enough to tap into that a little bit? I did think that was interesting. Let's hope that they go deeper in part 3. Oh, to be honest, parts 1 and 2 could have been one episode. The episode could have been an hour and a half, and it could have been just 2 parts instead of 3, and they could have went deeper. But I don't work for TLC. Maybe hire me. Let me ask some questions because I'll get to the bottom of some things. Okay. But seriously, I would. So let me know, what did you think of this tell all? What did you think of part 2? What were you hoping to learn or hear, but we didn't get it? And maybe you did hear something. Let me know. If anything stood out to you, I would love to hear. Let us know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I want you to have a courageous day. Come on back for the next one. But until then, bye for now.